Right, so I'm just swapping over from a ledger setup now that I've been fishing for about an hour or two, and I'm just going to show you my basic float ledger setup. It consists of a float, a couple of bits of terminal tackle, a lead and a stop knot. I'm fishing with pretty heavy tackle when I pike fish. I've just got £60 Spectra braid on. It's very cheap stuff, but it's very strong, and it's pretty much the best stuff I've ever used. So I'll get into it quickly. I'm just going to run through it very basically and not mess about too much. So I've threaded the rod up already, and I'm just going to thread my float onto the main line. So it's pretty basic. This is a slider float, this one, and this is what you need for this sort of setup. So you just thread the line through till it comes out the other side. Then that's your float attached already. Then you take a little running clip, which these are NU fish I got off eBay. I got like 25 for about £4, so very cheap. But the beauty of these is you can buy cheap ones because you don't want them to be strong anyway, because if your lead gets snagged on bottom, you want either that plastic to snap or the metal where your lead's attached to bend out basically. So that's threaded onto the line the same as the float, and that just slides up out of the way. Then you take a little rubber buffer bead, and these are ESP carp ones, and the beauty of these is you've got a big end and a small end, and the line threads through the smaller side, and then the bigger side is where what goes over the top at swivel. So that slides on just like the clip, goes up the line out of the way, and then you just attach a little quick change link, and these are Fox ones, these. But if you've got any sort of quick change link, they'll do the job fine. That threads on to the line just where the swivel is, and then that's tied on with any knot that you know well, and make sure it's very strong knot. So that's where all the tension's going to be if you get any fish on. So I'm going to use the blood knot, which is pretty easy to tie. There's loads of tutorials on YouTube as well, probably more in depth, but basically all you do is you just make a little loop in the line like so, and then you wrap the tag end around the main line 6 or 7 times, like so, and then your tag end goes in the little loop that you started with, just underneath like that. Then you fold that tag end back over. In fact, you don't actually have to do this, but it just ensures it never comes undone. So you fold that tag end back over, then back through another loop that you just made. Pull that through, then wet the line a bit and just tighten down to the end of the swivel. Sometimes it helps just to pull on tag end a little bit as well. And then that's on now, and then you just cut the tag off. That's pretty much the ledger setup done. Now I just need to add a stop knot. So for the stop knot material that I'm using £14 power gum. This is Drennan. And all you basically want to do is get a length off for about 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches, cut some off, and then the stop knot wants to be above the float, so all you do is you line the stop knot material above your main line, form a little loop like so, and then you should have a little tag end, which basically all you do is you wrap it underneath the main line and back through that loop about 6 times. It's a bit fiddly, but you can get used to it. Like I say, if you're struggling with this knot, just type in on YouTube how to tie a stop knot for pike fishing. Made a bit of an ash of that, but you know, it should be fine. That. There you go, that's your stop knot on. So Bobs and Brent like to leave these little tag ends on, and they can help if you're fishing at distance. You can see those tags and how far away they are from your float for when you're setting your depth. So I'm going to get this cast out, and I might even do a little bit to show you how to get your depth as well. If you know the average depth of the lake, set your stop knot about that depth. If you don't know, set it about 5 foot. That's a good starting point. So that's what I'll do now. and then I'm going to fish next to these reeds here. So all I'm going to do is stop knot set, cast in, and as you can see the float's sat level on the surface now, so that's just slightly over depth. If I tighten the line up, you can see the float cocks there, and that's fishable now. You can fish it like that. As long as your float's cocked, you can fish it. But I'll just show you quickly what it's like to fish under depth. So I'll take a few inch off, and this float should go under water now. Yeah, so that's called fishing under depth, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see on camera, but the float's actually a couple of inches under the water. So in that case, you'd have to bring your float back in and just add a couple of inches back onto the stop knot. Then your float should either sit directly up in the water or flat, and then if you tighten up to it, it should a bit shallower there. Get it back to where I was. So as you can see now, the float's actually flat up in the water, so that's dead depth now. So the line's just going straight down from the float to the lead. So that's that. If you fish really far over depth, I'll show you this last thing. So it's good to know. That's probably about a foot or two over depth now. You can see that the stop knot's actually not touching the float. So that's over depth, but if you bring your rod back or just tighten the line up, as long as that stop knot's on the float and your float cocks like that, then you're going to see a bite. But always try to get it as close to the actual depth of the lake as you can, so you don't want to be tightening it up loads because it just gets on your nerves. But that's how to set your depth with a slider float on a float ledger setup. So I'll get some bait on now. In fact, one last little tip before I do that: never find the depth with your bait or your hooks on. In that case, just do it with a lead. It's a lot easier and it saves you from getting snagged. I'm going to bait up now with a roach and get cast out and see if we can catch any fish.